Yes. Okay, cool. So before we start off, yes, I'm turning live in a second. It's going live. So you guys get the videos immediately nowadays, right? आजकल late नहीं होता है. Okay, cool. Why is your attendance 20%? We will talk about that. Uh, एक बार हम लोग कर लें फिर हम लोग के पास all the details are there with us, so you don't have to worry. कहीं नहीं जा रहा है कोई भी detail. हो सकता है कहीं manual entry में दिक्कत हो गई हो या something has happened. Don't worry about that. We will figure that out. Okay, cool. So where were we yesterday? And before I start off, let's discuss on the things that we are going to do today. Right? Okay, cool. So the agenda for the day is we discussed it yesterday as well. Agenda for the day is we have already talked about. We will take a quick recap. Quick recap, maybe 5 minutes for this, and then we will move on to a very important aspect of. We will talk about inline and block in details. We also talked about this yesterday, but there are more things that are going to come, and it will give you a clear understanding of how things are inline and block elements. Then we will also have IDs and classes, which is a very important concept in terms of everything that you're going to build in terms of UI, UX, or whatever view that you're going to create. This is a very important concept. We are going to talk about divisions and spans. Then we will talk about forms, and if time permits today, we will talk about semantics of HTML5. So with this, what you will gain is a complete picture of what HTML is all about. Once you have an idea of what HTML is all about, from there on, there is a upward journey. Everything is upward from there. Then we move on to the design aspect using CSS. Then we move on to the interactivity part where we talk about JavaScript, and then comes the elephant in the room, the React. That is going to be fun though. If you learn it at a early stage or whatever stage you are in right now, it is going to be fun. All right, let me share the screen. I haven't pushed anything on the GitHub. I will push it finally once we are done with all the discussions. But we had created these things over here. Okay, we have written this as well. Okay, cool. So before I start this, I will just start the live server, and where we can see the changes that we are doing. Yesterday we talked about download also. I think a lot of people left by the time we talked about download. तो कोई recap बता सकता है download का कैसे होता है? How do we use download? Anyone who can tell me about download? How do I, if I want a link to be able to download stuff, how do we use it? If I want some link to be download, button, okay, download attribute, correct. So let's say I want to download this particular picture that I have over here. Let's say ये picture को मेरे को download कराना है user को. So how will I do this? Okay, line number 25 of index.html. Correct. This. So when I say download, I am using a anchor tag. It is not an image tag. ठीक है? तो अगर मैं इसका view देखूं, how has it come out till now? It has come out something like this, right? So if I click on this, if I share the complete screen, then only you will be able to see it. So if I click on this, sorry, 1 second. If I click on this, you see it gives me an option to download. I think, yeah, it gives me an option to download, right? It comes up, shows me that you want to download. I do not want it, then I close it. So pretty cool, right? Pretty handy. With HTML also, we can do all this stuff. Okay, I hope you guys can see both the screens when I swipe right and left. Okay, all right. ठीक है, तो अभी तक कल तक हमने ये सारी चीजें की थी. So अब हम लोग क्या करते हैं? We shall talk about distributing our page in a much more logical way, much more organized way. And to do that, we use this tag called div tags. Okay, so basically, div tag is nothing but a kind of a tag which helps us to divide our page into certain different sections and handle it in a much more logical way. All right. So I will go ahead and write a div tag. For the div tag, what we do is we use this div and as usual, and I'm going to put everything that we have over here inside this tag. Okay. I'm going to put everything over here inside this tag. This becomes my one section. So let's say this is my heading part. I'll just say welcome, welcome. That's just the message, and there is a message over here. ठीक है? तो ये एक div हो गया. Let's say ये वाला section भी मेरा एक और section है. There is one more section that I have on my page. So what I'll do is I'll create a div over here, and I will move everything inside it. Do you see the indentation? Does it make sense why I'm indenting it one line inside? You see, I'm indenting everything one line inside. ठीक है? So एक hierarchy भी आप देख सकते हो इसमें. You would be able to see a hierarchy in this. Okay, let's say I will create another div tag over here. And inside this, I'm going to quickly copy this and put it inside this. Just for the reference of what we are doing. And I will no more welcome. Let's change it to our stories. Let's call it our stories. Image डाल दिया, link डाल दिया, downloadable PDF डाल दिया, heading दे रहा हूँ, which is more relatable, and let me make it H2. Yes. So as I said, divs will help us to divide our section, and it will make more sense when we start targeting this individual section of our page. And I will show you that visually in a second. All right, so this is multiple lists that we have, and we do not have a header for this one. I'll just go ahead and put a H2 for this or H3 for this instead of H2. Our stories is done. Cool. And I will say features. I'll call this features, and I'll just comment out this UL aspect. ठीक है, इसको क्या प्रॉब्लम हो गई? ओके, ऑर्डर्ड लिस्ट में आ गया फीचर्स. तो ये कंप्लीट चीज को आई कैन पुट इट इनसाइड अ div. यहाँ पे हटा के I'll put it inside a div. Is it okay if I remove this? Is it okay if I remove this part? Delete it? All right, cool. So that it is not a clutter in terms of understanding what I'm trying to do. ये हो गया हमारा features aspect. इसको डाल दिया हमने यहाँ पे. और just make sure that it is aligned properly. And this will give you a nice little understanding of कौन किसका parent है, कौन किसका child है. और यहाँ पे ये DTDL हटा देते हैं. And what I will call this as contact us. I'll call this as contact us. And यहाँ पे we will put H3. Okay, and inside this, I will quickly have another section called H2, sorry, H4, which will make me understand that what kind of contact us I'm going to have. And I will call this as email and a P tag over here. And I'll call this abc@xyz.com. And the next thing I will do is same thing, and I will put it as a, let's say, Instagram handle. I'll say at the rate abcxyz, random name. Okay, so this complete thing will come under contact, so I'll just rename it and put it under div. तो अभी आप लोग समझ गए होंगे कि मैं कर क्या रहा हूँ. You would have understood that I have divided my page into certain sections, certain sections, uh, which will help me to distribute our page in such a way that it helps us to bifurcate. Now, if I try to close this out, now Visual Studio gives us this functionality of closing these things out. So if I close it out, do you see it looks like that? कुछ एक दो तीन चार पांच वे में डिवाइडेड है अपना होल पेज, राइट. एंड हर सेक्शन के अंदर हमने कुछ कुछ चीजें लिखी हुई हैं विच मेक सेंस टू मी, राइट. So div helps us. It's like a logical setting for our it makes us, it makes our page in a more logical way. It lets us handle these things in a much more logical way. So if I save this and go to our main page, there won't be much difference in the view as such. You won't be able to understand that could change where, right? Apart from the content that we have changed, यहाँ पे आपको major changes नहीं दिख रहे होंगे, correct? But आप you might be able to see कि कैसे हमारा headings are coming into picture, right? It's something relatable. Are you guys able to relate it to the real world websites that you see nowadays, right? कि एक सेक्शन का हेडर बड़ा है, एक सेक्शन का हेडर थोड़ा सा छोटा है, एक का बहुत ही छोटा है, ठीक है. सो सिमिलर मैनर में वी आर ट्राइंग टू build and understand the web page aspect. But when I have introduced div, nothing has happened. Now I also talked about the console, right? The console that we have. So what this does is this gives me a section or helps me to see what all things have I written. It is like a developer console, this is called, and where we can see a lot of things of about a website. At the moment, what I see is all the divs. So कल जो हमने देखा था इसका और अभी हम जो देख रहे हैं, it's much more easier to target, right? It's much more easier to understand कि अच्छा चलो ठीक है, मेरे को ये वाले div में देखना है क्या क्या है. So I just expand this and see, okay, there are links, what are the links and uh, what are the things that I have used. Maybe I'll close this and I'll see यहाँ contact comment के साथ क्या है. So with comment, it makes more easier for me. And I see, okay, I have used H3, H4 and P tags for these two. So div is a kind of a division for us. It helps me to work in a much more simpler ways, much more simpler fashion, and divide our page in a much more logical sense. Clear with what divs are? What divs are? Are you clear on that? There will be no difference without div, but it will be much more difficult for you to read and handle and the things that you're going to learn in our upcoming topics. You will find it like a much more problematic way to handle individual stuff. हर एक चीज को याद रखना पड़ेगा, right? Correct. It's like a container. We use word called container a lot of times, and this is like a container division. Basically, this is a division of our pages. तो ठीक है. अब what do you think? Div is a block or a inline element? Block, block. All right, correct. So div is a block element. We talked about the block and inline difference. Uh, Inline is something which only takes up the space of the content, like our a tag or a image tag, right? Yesterday we saw image was because it was in a smaller screen. people thought that it is a block tag, but no, it was a inline tag. Okay, so any tag that takes up only the space of the content which is it is providing, it is going to be an inline tag. And if something is taking up the whole screen space, like our p tag, h tag, div tags, or any kind of other tags, ul tags, these are the these are the block tags. All right, so what is the span then? So what span does is it helps me to target a certain section or a span of area. Okay, let's say इस div के अंदर, इस particular text के अंदर, let me just press enter. This is not going to make any changes to my formatting on the web page, but यहाँ पे मेरे को readability के लिए आसान हो जाएगा, तो मैंने यहाँ पे ये कर दिया. Okay, so let's say I want to target this section. Sorry, यहाँ से उठा के ये जो question mark है, इसको मैंने यहाँ पे डाल दिया. Okay, do you think there is going to be any kind of difference in the view? Let's see. ये वाला part था question mark वाला जो मैंने डाला था. Did I save it? Let me check. Yes, I did. So it would have reflected. So if I refresh this just to be safe, and I'll go inside this p tag, and you see there is a span that is being highlighted. What is the span that it has highlighted? What is the span it has highlighted? What I'll do is I'll just put it down ताकि ये full view में आ जाए. ऐसे देखते हैं, ये better है. It is highlighted a certain section. It is highlighted a certain span. Okay, so span is inline or yeah, span is a whether inline or a block. I'm sure you would be aware of this. It's a span. It's an inline tag. Correct. So that is the difference between div and span. अगर आपको कोई छोटा section inline section में काम करना है, और ये आपको ज़्यादा useful लगेगा when you start designing or using CSS, okay, that you want to just take out this section. So you can say, okay, this I will use this span and do something with this part of the whole text. ठीक है, div में क्या हो रहा है कि ये पूरा section ले रहा है. Let's say I'm going to take up just part of the div and start working on this div and style it or do whatever with this div that I want to do. Correct? It's not spam, it's span, S-P-A-N. Okay. Use of the span is you can target a certain section. तो ये एक inline tag है. जितनी दूर आप रखोगे वो उतने दूर का section लेगा. And this will make more sense in a second. I'll tell you. So similar to this, so there are a lot of inline tags. There are a lot of block tags. I cannot specifically tell you the numbers as such. मेरे पास वो number नहीं exactly, but आपको समझ में आ जाएगा जैसे आप use करोगे, जितने भी चीजें use करोगे, वो सारी चीजें समझ में आ जाएगा कि कौन सा inline है, कौन सा block है. और अब आगे चल के हम ये भी देखने वाले हैं कि कुछ block elements को हम change करेंगे CSS को use करके, कि उसको हमने inline tag बना दिया for the purpose, for our purpose, for visibility purpose. ठीक है. div भी सेम चीज करता है, बट div क्या करता है कि वो पूरा पूरा पेज का विड्थ लेगा. जिसको मैंने div के अंदर स्पेसिफाई किया वो पूरा पेज ले लेगा. बट स्पैन में क्या कर रहे हो, जितना देर तुमने स्पैन स्पेसिफाई किया, इट इज गोइंग टू टेक अप ओनली दैट पार्ट ऑफ द पेज. Okay, that is the difference between div and a span. So it's a block element. One is a block, one is a inline element. Ravindra, is it clear? Okay, cool. तो एक और आपको मैं कुछ ऐसे इनलाइन टैग्स दिखा देता हूँ. एक होता है आइटैलिक आई टैग. ठीक है, लेट्स से कि मेरे को इसको थोड़ा चेंज करना है. तो अब मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, आई टैग यूज कर रहा हूँ, और यहाँ पे आप देखोगे डिड इट चेंज, राइट? डिड इट चेंज? आइटलाइज हो गया, राइट? सो it is also a inline tag similar to your span tag, but इसका क्या है कि कुछ certain property that has been given to this, and you can go ahead and use it. So it will be applied only to the section that you are putting it in. Yeah, there is a bold tag, there is a strong tag. So if you want to, let's say I want to make this bold, let's use something which we have over here. Let's say ये वाला part ipsum dollar को bold करना है. So I will say B tag. Okay. Okay. And I will say, will this work? What do you guys think? Is it B or bold? Right. M tag is also there. So there are a lot of tags. There are a lot of tags which you can use. Now, there is a very slight difference. There is a question that came from Rohit, which is a very good question. There is a strong tag as well, which is also a small tag, one inline tag, which will make it look bolder. But there is a very slight difference in terms of why it is used. देखो दोनों दोनों same चीज कर रहा है, right? There is no much difference between them two. Correct? The difference is, Jagdish, you are right, but uh, but the thing is now strong is coming in terms of your SEO. होता क्या है जब आप सर्च कर रहे हो and if you have put something in strong tag, Google crawler will also consider the fact that what are the things that are in strong tag. So when you are putting something in a strong tag, it means that you are emphasizing your particular tag or particular word, by which, let's say I'm searching for ipsum, and if I'm searching for whatever this word means, I don't know how to pronounce this. ठीक है, तो अभी मैंने इस word के लिए I have used strong. So Google will try to understand that, okay, if someone is searching for this kind of word on Google, it is going to extract that ये strong tag में, that means there is a strong importance of this word. B tag is just for font purpose. So they are trying to deprecate some of the tags, correct? And slowly there are uh, other tags that are getting deprecated, and we are having a newer tags, newer versions of everything. Yes. So strong tag is something that you should use if you are trying to emphasize something. Now you just cannot go ahead and start using strong everywhere. Sometimes you just want to make it bold, but आपको अपनी वेबसाइट में उसको emphasize नहीं करना है, आपको बस bold करना है. So you use bold tag. You don't want that to be a part of your SEO, then just use the bold tag. Make sense? Right? So these are all inline tags. सारे टैग्स जो अभी मैंने डिस्कस किए वो सारे टैग्स इनलाइन है क्योंकि इट इज ओनली गोइंग टू टेक अप द स्पेस. बोल्ड टैग, strong tag, it is only going to take up a certain section of the space. All right, let's make it more logical. And for that, what we will do is we will do IDs and classes. We will start to understand IDs and classes and uska usage we will. Preet, do you want the control of my screen? उसका यूसेज अभी के टर्म्स में, if you are fresh and new to this, might seem like overboard, but it is a very useful aspect of any kind of development. So what I'll do is I will start talking about IDs and classes. So what is the importance of IDs and classes? So उसके लिए पहले मेरे को white board पे जाना पड़ेगा and we will talk in terms of IDs. So IDs are uniquely or a unique identification. Obviously, सबके पास रहता है. And then we will come to classes. So when I talk about ID, ID becomes an attribute. It's called, it is an attribute that can be used for any tags that we have on our web page. Okay? So whether it is a tag, I tag, image tag, span tag, div tag, किसी को भी हम ID provide कर सकते हैं. This is a attribute that we can add to the existing tag. And similarly, Classes is also an attribute which can be provided. अब दोनों में difference क्या है? ID you might understand that you should be using it uniquely, right? You should be using it uniquely. तो अगर मैं किसी भी सेक्शन को अपने वेबसाइट पे या अपने कोड में यूनिकली आइडेंटिफाई करना चाहता हूँ, so I can use IDs. Correct? I can use IDs. So let me go ahead and start writing those IDs, and I will call this is the attribute that I'm adding to the existing tag. So I can add this ID and give it a name. Okay, if I try to give it a name, I use double quotes, and this name can be anything that I use, but we would try to use a name which makes sense to me, right? Up A, B, B, C, C, D, D. If I start using that, again, the confusion is created and the point of ID is defeated. But I would say, okay, this is the header part of my website, so I'm going to name it as header. All right, what is this? This is no more section. Okay, so I will say, let's say, about us. Yeah, about. I'll just use the ID of about. Similarly, ID of stories or story, let's say. And then we have another section. So I'll name it as feature. S, features. And inside this, I have this section and I will ID it as contact. तो अब ये क्या हुआ है? Let me just again do this. Now by giving ID, has it made it more clear? Has it made it more readable? Does it look like it has more sense in terms of coding? Yes, IDs and classes are mostly used when we are working with CSS, but what we do here is we are trying to bifurcate our index.html in a much more logical way so that it is easier for us to understand what section do we have. Now you would say, can I use an ID, same ID anywhere else? What do you guys say about that? Will it break my code? Will it break my HTML page? No, right? We can use it. So if I go ahead and create a similar ID over here, let's say here, like it header. Okay, let me share this screen. Not much of a difference is going to happen on the screen. Neither is my HTML going to change anything. ठीक है? तो अब क्या है कि इसमें you can use it, but the purpose is defeated, and also it will be redundant. Redundant, by redundant I mean you are using something which is never going to be of any use whatsoever, or reusing something. तो यहाँ पे अगर मैं देखूँ, इसको contact वापस कर देते हैं. We use ID when we are talking in terms of pages or HTML pages. Only one ID should be there. Only one ID should be there. Okay? You cannot, it doesn't make sense to have multiple IDs. तो अब मैंने इसको uniquely identify कर दिया. अब क्या करना है मेरे को? Classes समझना है. So what is classes? What are classes? Let's say. तो यहाँ पे जाता हूँ मैं और इसको एक div में डाल देता हूँ मैं. Let's put these two sections in two different divs. So this is one way and this is div. I'll just put it over here, skew it inside and put it on top. Right over here. Okay, so what I have done is inside the div, I have created another div. Okay. All right, guys, I see a kind of a distractive interaction going on. Can we use this? This is a good thing that you're asking, but we use Slack for this when we are not in the session? maybe you will get a better response at that point of time. Okay, स्लैक पे डाल दो और रिस्पॉन्स, और एक कम्युनिटी बनाना है तो हम लोग कम्युनिटी भी बना देंगे, एंड वी कैन हैव डिस्कशन ऑन कॉम्पिटिटिव एज वेल. ऑलराइट, सो कमिंग बैक, मैंने एक और div बना दिया. अब यहाँ पे मैं क्लास यूज करूंगा. द रीजन आई एम गोइंग टू यूज क्लास ओवर हियर इज when we define anything with a class attribute, we keep in mind कि जो भी चीजें हैं इसके अंदर are similar. It's kind of similar for me to look at. So I can say this is a contact method, right? Both of them that you see over here is kind of a contact method. Agreed? Right? Both of them are kind of a contact method. Why? Because these are the ways I am asking my user to go and check out about ourselves or contact us using these stuff. So we can use class attribute for anything which looks similar or which might be similar for me. ठीक है? और कहाँ पे हम लोग use कर सकते हैं? Can I use it over here? Can I use it over here, class? Let's say I will be using feature list. ठीक है? और ये same class, if I create any more list, I can use the same. If I create another list, let's say हमारे पास दो तीन अलग type के features हैं. One is web application, one is mobile application features, one is of backend features or whatever. There are three different type of features list. Okay, and inside this, each one I can say okay feature list item. So just to take a look at the naming convention that I'm using. I'm using the naming convention which is much more readable, much more relatable to where I'm putting the name. अब feature के अंदर feature list का class दिया और हर एक item को feature list item का class दिया. That means I'm pretty sure at the moment that this particular thing, or if I create another list over here and that list will contain more features, I can use that this class again for that list and this item list. Because when you see and when you talk about design of a page, more on a creative aspect than a technical aspect, we are more concerned with uniformity. ठीक है, तो अब ये ऐसा करोगे कि एक फीचर को किसी और फॉन्ट से लिख दिया, एंड इफ यू राइट अनदर फीचर विद अनदर फॉन्ट and write one of the item in another font, so it is kind of breaking the uniformity of the page. You might experiment with that, but अगर मैं overview perspective से या user perspective से बोलूं, if you go ahead and check out the pages, most of the times you will find a consistent looking page, right? You guys would have experienced it or seen it, or when I say it you might realize it, right? So that uniformity is very much important. It is very much important in terms of what you are doing. And that is the same thing that is coming over here. So if I go ahead and understand कि चलो ठीक है मेरे को एक टाइप की चीज को एक नाम देना है, तो I will use the class attribute for that. And I can use as many names for that particular name that I have used. I can use as many tags or as many places because we are trying to target the similar looking or similar type of content in a way. So are you able to understand IDs, tags, and stuff? IDs, classes, tags, attributes, HTML. जो पहली बार पढ़ रहे हैं उनसे पूछ रहा हूँ मैं. जिन्होंने पढ़ा हुआ है उनको तो मजा आ ही रहा होगा, बट जिन्होंने फर्स्ट टाइम पढ़ा उनके लिए कैसा है ये? Are you guys able to follow? Is there any kind of problem that you're facing? Okay. All right. Cool. ठीक है, तो हम लोग आगे बढ़ते हैं. आज का एजेंडा क्या था? नेक्स्ट हमारा नेक्स्ट एजेंडा था आईडी और क्लास में. अपूर्वा, मैं पूरी चीजें बताता हूँ उसके बाद आप सेम क्वेश्चन पूछते हो. इट इज आईडी, मैंने बताया कि यूनिकली आइडेंटिफाई करेगा. अब मैं देखो दिखाता हूँ आपको टू मेक इट विजुअली क्लियर टू यू. नेटवर्क इशू था, ओके नो प्रॉब्लम. तो आईडी, आई एम ट्राइंग टू यूनिकली आइडेंटिफाई कि ये सेक्शन है. चलो अब मेरे को क्लैरिटी भी दे रहा है कि चलो ठीक है ये हेडर है, दिस इज अबाउट, दिस इज स्टोरी, मे बी आवर स्टोरीज, फीचर्स एंड कॉन्टैक्ट्स. Now inside the contact, if I open and I close this up, I understand that there is a contact method. So there are two ways of contact method. Let's say if I want to add something more in future, I'll go ahead and I'll copy this maybe and add it similarly. And what this will mean is that this is going to be a contact method. Let's say Twitter और same नाम रख देते हैं. तो मेरे पास तीन different contact methods हैं. ठीक है? So what I have done is I have specified the class or contact method, and this will help me in future when I'm trying to target a certain section which is similar in behavior or similar in content. Okay, we can only create an id or class in div only, or they can be in any tags. It can be used in any tags, Kirti. As you can see, I can let's say ये जो header है इसको मेरे को एक uniquely identify करना है, तो I will say I can name it as contact headers. ठीक है, और ये सेम क्लास में सारे जो ये कॉन्टैक्ट हेडर के लिए यूज किया हूँ वहां पे डाल सकता हूँ. आई कैन यूज इट एनीवेयर. ओके, राइट. ठीक है, तो अब ये सेम चीज हम लोग अपने वेबसाइट पे जाके देखते हैं कि कुछ चेंजेस आए कि नहीं. क्या लगता है? कुछ तो दिख नहीं रहा है डिफरेंस, बट बैकएंड पे जब एज अ डेवलपर if I am trying to have it read the code and understand my code, now the things are getting a little bit more organized in terms of how our HTML and how my document and the positioning and the markup is concerned, right? जब हम स्टार्ट किए थे तब कैसा था और अभी कैसा है? Do you guys find it more organized? Does it feel like I think this is much better to read at than what we had initially? Right? So this is what I am trying to stress on. Whenever you are trying to learn or code or start something new, just take it step by step slowly, maybe, and be it in a try to understand it in a such a way that it is a real thing. It is your thing. You're creating a project report, let's say, which is you that are going to present something. So in that manner, this is much more readable, and this is very important, which differentiates a good developer from a messy developer. The developer might be very good at the language, but the organization part, the way it represents, the naming convention, the names of the classes that you use, it plays a very important role in making or breaking in a particular job interview also, right? Not just related to HTML CSS, in all the aspects. अगर आप डेटा स्ट्रक्चर्स का भी इंटरव्यू दे रहे हो या किसी चीज़ का इंटरव्यू दे रहे हो, उसमें जो भी आप कोड के बारे में लिख के बता रहे हो, and if you use the right names, if you use it in a nice standard way, it will appeal more to the interviewee than the one that where you start using XYZ, ABC, I, or random XXX, ZZZ. ठीक है? So that is everywhere, not just here. Okay, there was a question from Rajkamal. ID is preferred over classes if there is CSS applied using ID and class both in same div, and then class CSS of ID will be preferred. So you are talking about something that we will talk about in CSS. You are talking about specificity, which is a very important concept, and we will come to that. Okay, any doubts still here? Shall we move on? All right. Okay, तो अब हम लोग को क्या करना है? Let's take a look at our whiteboard. we have to work on IDs हो गया, division spans हो गया, forms. Let's work on forms then. Let's create some forms. So for the forms, what I'll do is I will change the name of my existing branch. So let's say यहाँ पे जो टू था उसको हम लोग change कर देंगे to forms.html. Forms.html. Okay. So go back to page, second page, or let's call this subscribe. I'll call this subscribe. ठीक है, और यहाँ पे लिंक दे देंगे उसका. लेट्स अपडेट दैट लिंक. अब देखो मेरे लिए कितना नीट हो गया, आसान हो गया. आई जस्ट से अबाउट में होना चाहिए मेरा सेक्शन. यस, तो अबाउट में आई विल पुट इट एज डिटेल्स. लेट्स से डॉट स्लैश पेजेस के अंदर फॉर्म्स. ठीक है, एंड लेट्स से सब्सक्राइब. तो आई एम लिंकिंग माई यूजर टू दिस पर्टिकुलर सेक्शन कि आप जाओ, यहाँ पे जाओ, एक फॉर्म मिलेगा आपको एंड यू कैन स्टार्ट सब्सक्राइबिंग. राइट. अब फॉर्म पे आते हैं. Now, form is a very important aspect in HTML because you might have entered a lot of details on forms, right? You would have entered a lot of details while you're signing up, a lot of details while you are creating an account, a lot of details when you're filling out some forms for the examination and all that kind of stuff, right? So that is very important when it comes to HTML. And with latest HTML coming into picture, there are a lot of functionalities that has been added as a part of it. So to define a form, I will just go ahead, create a div. I will ID it as subscribe. Okay, generic, not capital. We don't use capital notation. We always try to name it with a small notation. Okay. Now in this, so to use forms, we have this thing called form. Okay, so it is another tag. अब ये एक complete tag होता है. There are a collection of tag inside this. There will be a lot more tags inside this. So if you want to create a form, the first thing that you need to do is define a form tag. Okay, and inside this you are going to create different types of forms. तो फॉर्म्स को क्रिएट करने के लिए हम लोग मोस्टली इनपुट टैग यूज करते हैं. ठीक है, एंड इनपुट टैग इज अ सेल्फ क्लोजिंग टैग. ओके, input tag is the self closing tag. Now this input tag will have a lot of attributes associated with this. The very first attribute is the type attribute, which defines that what type of input this is going to be. So as you can see, this is giving me a lot of options. ठीक है, बटन है, चेकबॉक्स है, कलर है, डेट है, टाइम है, ईमेल है, फाइल है, हिडन है, इमेज है, क्या है. There are a lot of things. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is the input type of text. Now what happens is when we are talking about input type of text, it means that I'm creating a form with a kind of a place where I'm letting the user to enter the text values or any kind of text. So let's go ahead and take a look at what is happening on my page at the moment. So if I go to my page, तो उस पेज पे जाने के लिए let me go here. I need to click on subscribe. So subscribe के नीचे आप देख रहे हो there is a input box, right? Right, and this is going to give me an option to write anything that I want. कुछ भी लिखो. But as a good developer or as a particular UI person or a front end अच्छा रखने के लिए और a neat रखने के लिए, what we want to do is we want to create a much more let's say understandable in terms of understandable in terms of user experience. So what I will do is I will also introduce one more tag along with this, and that is called a label tag. Okay. So what this label tag does is it is uh, kind of a, let's say, label for what I am going to use. Represents कि किसके लिए आप क्या कर सकते हो. तो अगर मैं यहाँ पे लिखूं, let's say username और first name और सिमिलरली कॉपी करके यहाँ पे लास्ट नेम कर देते हैं. तो अब हो क्या रहा है, यहाँ पे there will be two things that will be generated. There will be two input tags, first name and last name. So it gives an idea to the user. Correct? It gives an idea to the user कि यहाँ पे करना क्या है. अगर मैंने सीधे टैग लगा के लिख दिया, टेक्स्ट बता दिया उसको, तो it is going to have this particular empty box जहाँ पे मेरे को यूजर को पता ही नहीं चलेगा कि हो क्या रहा है. Right? Any doubts here? What I'm trying to do and why is it useful? Let's introduce another tag. Let's use a tag called email. And for this, I'll put another input and put a type to this. And this is a email tag. अभिषेक, आप बहुत आगे का क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हो, मैं अभी नहीं बता सकता ये आंसर, आपको बताता हूँ बाद में जब डाउट सेशन स्टार्ट करेंगे. देन आई विल टॉक अबाउट दिस, or if someone can answer him, then well and good. Okay, so here I have used the type which is different from the text type. What this will do is this will still look the same, but there is a very good advantage to this, which I will talk about when I introduce the type of submit. But again, this is another input area which has been provided to me. And let's say I just want to have another input type. Let's write type. So this is an attribute, right? और इसमें क्या डाल सकते हैं, पासवर्ड. ठीक है, पासवर्ड डाल दिया. ओके, पासवर्ड डाल दिया एंड इसको भी एक लेबल दे ही देते हैं, अदरवाइज इट विल लुक वियर्ड, राइट. एंटर पासवर्ड और एक सेम चीज लिख देंगे, कंफर्म पासवर्ड. ओके, तो अब ये पासवर्ड टाइप का क्या होगा, this is going to give me a functionality of hiding it the way you have seen it, right? So if I type something over here, you see it types like a password, right? You're not able to see it, correct? Email में मैं कुछ लिख दूं और if I go to the next one, it doesn't show me anything, but I'm going to show you what exactly it is going to do at the end of it. And in the name section, I will type something. So I'm kind of creating a form which is actually helping my page to understand that okay, uh, there is there is a form which has the labels, and user can actually go ahead and enter whatever details the user wants to depending on the label. This gives me an idea of what we are trying to enter. So if I go here, I have got a pretty decent amount of fields for this, but मेरे को क्या है कि इसको line change करना है, तो br tag use कर लें. This will look more presentable. Okay, br tag, copy this, put it here, put it here. So if I go back to my screen, it looks a lot weird, right? अजीब सा लग रहा है. तो कहाँ गड़बड़ कर दिया हमने, कहाँ पे लिखना चाहिए हमें, कहीं तो गड़बड़ लिखा है हमने. ये लेबल के बगल में डाल दिया तो ये पक्का गलत होगा, यहाँ पे डालना होगा. एंड और कोई लेबल के बगल में, okay, I will do it over here as well. So we have got something, but it looks a lot weird. तो दो बी आर यूज कर लेते हैं so that थोड़ा स्पेस भी आ जाए. ठीक है, तो हम लोग सिर्फ HTML के एलिमेंट्स को यूज करके थोड़ा सा फॉर्मेटिंग और ये सब भी सीख रहे हैं. इसका मच वे बेटर वे ऑफ डूइंग इज CSS, बट अभी के लिए थोड़ा सा बस रीडेबल पर्सपेक्टिव से हम लोग को HTML. सो नाउ वी सी दैट ओके और स्पेस हो गया, दिस इज मच मोर रीडेबल. ठीक है, तो इनपुट टैग क्या हुआ, इनलाइन हुआ कि ब्लॉक हुआ? इनलाइन राइट, क्योंकि सब एक के बगल में एक आ गया था. करेक्ट. ठीक है. अब एक और टैग होता है जो भी फॉर्म का एलिमेंट हो सकता है, बट उसको आप एक्स्ट्रा भी यूज कर सकते हो. इट्स कॉल्ड अ टेक्स्ट एरिया. ठीक है, और टेक्स्ट एरिया में जब हम डिफाइन करते हैं, सो वी डिफाइन रोज एंड कॉल्स. ठीक है, एक रोज एट्रीब्यूट होता है, एक कॉल्स एट्रीब्यूट होता है. तो बेसिकली टेक्स्ट एरिया भी सेम चीज है. लेट मी जस्ट गिव इट अ नंबर एंड वी विल एक्सप्लेन व्हाट दिस मींस. 100 by 100. ठीक है, अब लेट मी शो यू व्हाट टेक्स्ट एरिया लुक्स लाइक. एक बड़ा सा स्क्वायर आ गया, पता नहीं बहुत ज्यादा स्क्रीन का स्पेस ले लिया, बट दिस एरिया यू माइट हैव सीन, you might have seen that you enter a lot of details. अगर आपको बड़ा टेक्स्ट लिखना है कहीं पे, you can use this area as a part of your development. तो इसको भी एक लेबल दे देते हैं and I'll call this as about us. About us. Okay. और ये जो रोज एंड कॉल्स है, इट्स बेसिकली डिफाइनिंग कि कितना बड़ा होना चाहिए, कितने रोज में मेरा टेक्स्ट एरिया डिवाइड होना चाहिए और कितने कॉलम्स में मेरा टेक्स्ट एरिया डिवाइड होना चाहिए. सो इफ आई गो अहेड एंड से आई जस्ट वांट इट फॉर 10 रोज एंड 100 कॉलम्स, तो वो साइज छोटा हो जाएगा, राइट? सो द साइज बिकम स्मॉलर. अबाउट has come here, and in this sense, in this one, it does make sense to have a br after this, or a single br after my label, so that वो next line में आ जाए. And let's check it out. Right, it makes sense. So I am using my HTML knowledge and I'm also placing stuff, and this is also resizable. Okay, so it gives us a feature of resizability. Okay, so are you guys able to understand and grasp the concept of forms, कि हम अलग अलग टाइप के इनपुट फील्ड्स ले सकते हैं? अब सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट इनपुट फील्ड लेने वाले हैं जिसके वजह से सारी चीजें होती है, and that input field type is called submit. I'm going to use the type submit, and I'm going to say, let's see what comes over here. So type submit आ गया. तो basically submit type जो होता है वो एक बटन होता है. ठीक है, so if I click on this, whatever details I have written in this form will get collected and it will be sent or maybe used the whatever way you want to use it. Now, when we talk about CSS, JavaScript, when we'll talk about JavaScript or when we will use React, in that aspect, we are going to collect whatever user has entered over here and use that information to send it to my backend, or use that information to do something on the page. I might want to redirect the user from this page to another page, or wants to show a message to a user based on whatever the user has submitted, right? Cool. ठीक है, तो एक काम करते हैं, यहाँ पे आ जाओ और इस पे भी एक br टैग लगा दो, और फिर एक क्विक ब्रेक ले लेते हैं and then we will talk further. How does that sound? A quick 2 minutes break. Let's inspect. I'll leave the code as well for you during the break, so that if you want to see what we have written till now, you can see it over here. So side kar dete hain, dev2. So let's take a quick break for 2 minutes. I'll also get some water. You also take some water and then we will continue. किट कैट ब्रेक कूल. तो अभी कितना बज रहा है? 9:03 हो रहा है ना. 9:01 हो रहा है. 9:05 पे रिज्यूम करते हैं. ओके, वी विल रिज्यूम एट 9:05. All right, guys. So, shall we resume? Right on time. Okay, cool. So, till now, what we have done is we have created a form, and we have used all the HTML tags that we have seen till now, and we have defined everything inside the form element. So, make sure whenever you are creating any kind of form, it should be under a form tag. All these input tags आप individual भी use कर सकते हो, but the problem will arise that when I try to submit the element, you won't find a submit element. So what submit button that you see over here does is it collects all the details that I have over here and it sends it to somewhere. So when I say sends it to somewhere, it might be a backend जहाँ पे हमने code लिखा हुआ है, or it might be we don't send it, we just manipulate the data that we receive from the user and show something based on the requirement of our website or whatever our website does. Okay, so what I will do is I'll go back to the code and introduce two attributes to my form over here, and those two, yes, definitely MERN to pura full stack hai na. So what we will do over here is I'm going to introduce a attribute to this one. So this one is going to be the very first one is going to be action. So what action means is where I want to send it, right? Where I want to send it. So this is kind of a information कि कहाँ पे मेरे को ये भेजना है, और ये this can be a URL. I want to send it to certain URL, let's say HTTPS And that URL you cannot just go ahead and say google.com, क्योंकि भेज तो दोगे आप google.com पे, बट google.com करेगा क्या इस इंफॉर्मेशन का? क्या google.com का कोड लिखा हुआ है उस सेंस में? So this is basically the URL that you are sending, okay, where you want to send it at the moment. And you will see that we might not use this much action, but this is the URI where I'm going to send this. This is the URI that I'm going to send. So if I hover over this, let's read what VS Code tells about this. So URI of the program that processes the form information. Basically कहाँ पे ये form का detail ले जाना है और क्या करना है उसको. तो basically ये details of the first name, last name, password, all the things that has been captured will be sent to this particular URI. The second thing that we have, can anyone tell me what is the second thing apart from action? Correct, method. This is something that we are going to see a lot when we are talking in terms of our full stack development. And but in our form section and in our HTML section, we have two types of methods, which is mostly get and post. तो get और post के बारे में हम लोग डिटेल्स में बात करेंगे जब हम लोग HTTP मेथड और बैकएंड पे इंटरेक्शन करेंगे. But to give you a better understanding of what this is basically a way of saying ki whether I am trying to fetch some details, whether I'm trying to get some details, or whether I'm trying to send some details which might be saved in a database or might be saved in a database that we have for our applications, and we might use that for some other purposes. Okay, but in our scenario at the moment we do not have anything like an action, we do not have a backend, and we are not specifying any kind of method at the moment. ठीक है, तो अभी के लिए इसको हटा देते हैं और एक काम करते हैं, let's submit some details on the form. Yes, they uh, they differ in terms of, not in terms of security, I would say, in terms of the way they take the data. So let me just do this. I will write cipher school, cipher@school.com. 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. Brilliant topics. And I've filled out this form. Before I submit this, I'll do a little bit of change over here. I'll just write this .com, cipher.com. ठीक है, पासवर्ड ऐसे छोड़ दिया है. अब मैं इसको सबमिट करता हूँ. What do you see? Email tells me that it might be missing at the rate. Did you guys see that? Did you guys see it? It showed us a kind of a validation. So that's a pretty cool stuff with this kind of new form elements that has come here, because this is also kind of a check validation for a user. हम हमें बार बार यूजर, क्योंकि यूजर बहुत बार गलती करता है. We, when we are creating anything, when we are trying to develop something, we keep in mind that user, I'll not call them stupid, but user doesn't know anything. We develop anything in that sense of mind, with that sense of mind, that okay, user will not be aware of कि कहाँ ये लिखना है, कहाँ वो रखना है, or maybe they can add it. So we can do it manually as well, but ये सारे features add हो गए. अब मैं इसको @ कर दूँ, and if I submit it right now, ठीक है, I don't want to change data breach. क्या हुआ? कुछ कुछ हुआ, मतलब गायब हो गया सब चीज, राइट? तो बेसिकली गायब नहीं हुआ है. हुआ क्या है कि जो भी डेटा था वो कलेक्ट हुआ और वो चला गया. ठीक है, आप यहाँ पे देख रहे हो, ये जो यूआरएल बना है, ये जो यूआरएल बना हुआ है यहाँ पे, that has been submitted and it has gone to some part which is not being specified at the moment. So we haven't we haven't just got the data sent, but we have also specified this URL is telling me that I have sent the data. So when I'm submitting it, what is the default behavior? It refreshes the page, correct? If I refresh, send it right now, if I do submit it right now, there is no entry as such, and it is still sending it. It doesn't go. It is like a default behavior. So browser takes it to whatever we have defined. We have not defined anything, so therefore it shows only question mark. ठीक है, उसको भी नहीं पता कहाँ ले गया, but उसका default behavior यही है that it takes up the data and sends it. Refresh हो जाता है and it has collected. Now we will also learn to how to collect this data, how to use this data. सिर्फ HTML में हमने collect नहीं किया. What we have done is we have just seen that how form works. Okay, तो अब क्या करेंगे, लेट्स से मैं इसमें बस एक मेथड डाल देता हूँ गेट करके, क्योंकि आप लोग बहुत इस पे डिस्कशन कर रहे हो. लेट्स सी व्हाट हैपेंस. सो आई विल से cipher school cipher@school.com 123 123 and submit this. So if I submit this, आपने देखा रिफ्रेश हुआ पेज विद ऑल द डिटेल्स. ठीक है, बैकएंड में वो गेट कर रहा है, हमने कुछ स्पेसिफाई नहीं किया, बट मेरा फॉर्म मस्ती कर रहा है अपने में, खुद से बोल रहा है ठीक है मैं भेज रहा हूँ इसको. कहाँ भेज रहा है, किधर भेजना है, कुछ नहीं पता है. बस अभी हमने क्या किया, एक स्पेसिफाई कर दिया मेथड. तो एक क्लैरिटी हो जाती है बैकएंड में, मतलब इफ यू थिंक इट इन टर्म्स ऑफ हाउ दिस प्रोसेस इज गोइंग, we have only given the clarity of what type of method we are using. If we remove that, well and fine, that also works fine over here. But अभी हम लोग क्या करते हैं, this form is required. अगर मैं ये form tag ही हटा दूं, अगर मैं form tag हटा दूं और सीधे ऐसे लिखूं, what is the difference? What is the difference? मैंने form tag जो surround कर रहा था वो हटा दिया है. Let me show you the code. Inspect element में ये subscribe है, form नहीं है, सिर्फ label वेबल है. What will happen? When I press submit, nothing is happening, right? There is no submit. If I press, put some data over here. Okay. And now if I submit, what happened? Neither it is telling me about this validation, neither it is submitting, neither it is taking the data, right? So basically there is no form as such. We have just used a simple HTML tag which has a property of defining the way it wants or the way it should be. अगर मैं यहाँ पे एक और tag डाल दिया, let's say I just want to use an input tag of date. Okay, so about us से पहले, let's say I put an input tag of date of birth. Sorry, type is equal to date. Date कर दिया, time नहीं चाहिए मेरे को, date चाहिए. तो यहाँ पे and I'll put a label. So यहाँ पे date आ गया. अब मैं कुछ भी कर लूँ यहाँ पे submit, मैं submit नहीं कर पाऊंगा. I won't be able to submit. It's like using a regular tag, but with the form surrounding it with a form, what it will do is it will make it as a submitting form or a thing where you can collect the data and send it somewhere. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Yeah, we'll come to that now. तो अभी हमने ये attributes देख लिए. यहाँ पे कुछ ऐड किया था, इसका भी एक लेबल डाल देते हैं, डेट और बर्थडे. Cool. BR. Okay. So कैसा दिख रहा है मेरा पेज देख लेते हैं एक बार. So we have, okay, we might skip the exclamation mark. We don't need it at the moment. This will work. All right. Apart from this, there are certain types of things that we can use as more of a validation or more of a better form for collecting data. Okay. So what we will use is, uh, let me write it over here. We will say, let's say I want to give it a certain, I want to make it a required field that if a user is entering this, user needs to enter this before that person can submit it. So there is this required field. ठीक है, इसको सेट करने से क्या होगा, it's like a flag which is basically going to say कि आपको ये details भरना जरूरी है. ठीक है, if I do this for all the things over here and that's it, birthday or about us को skip कर सकते हैं. I just want these fields to be submitted. So when I go here, there is no change as such, but if I click submit now, it says please fill in this field, right? Can you see this? It's pretty handy for us when we are creating forms, right? Autofill forms, previous email address. Shashank, this is all the part of Google Chrome. Google Chrome में automatically तुमको data आ जाएगा if you have set it like that. So everything that you see is made out of HTML. At the end of the day, everything is made out of HTML, Manan. Okay, क्योंकि first view तो आपका HTML ही provide कर रहा है. All this structure is provided by HTML. बड़ी से बड़ी साइट Facebook तक HTML ही use करेगी, otherwise without HTML कैसे display करेंगे, right? So if I enter this, let's say I enter my name itself, and then I submit the data, it will go on to the next one. ठीक है? It will go on to the next one. So I will say, let's say cipher. And then if I submit again, it doesn't submit. I'll say cipher@school.com. Again, if I submit, next one. So whatever fields that I'm entering, let's say I skip this field and try to enter this, it will still have that validation done. Okay. So if I do this and submit, it does submit my form, right? It takes whatever, it refreshes the page and everything goes here. So this is one attribute. Another attribute is, let's say I want to have a predefined value to this. ठीक है, तो हम लोग क्या करते हैं, predefined value किस पे use कर सकते हैं? I'm going to introduce a new type over here before about us, and this type is going to be, let's say, select. तो उसके लिए मैं एक ड्रॉप डाउन इंट्रोड्यूस करना चाहता हूँ. So interest, let's call this interest, और इसके नीचे instead of having this input, इसको थोड़ा separate कर दूं ताकि आप लोग को दिखे visually. This is going to be a separate thing. Instead of input tag, I'm going to use a select tag. Okay. Now in the select tag, you see it is asking for a name attribute and an ID attribute, and we will come to that later. But inside the select tag, we provide options. We provide options. Okay. Option से क्या होता है? So it's like, let's say, coding is one interest. There are multiple options that I'm going to provide over here. Another one is gaming. Then I will provide multiple options like music. Then I will provide something like sports. ठीक है, ऐसे ही लिख दिया. तो select से क्या होता है? Select is also something like that, like a drop down. And as you can see, it says interest. And if I press this drop down, it gives me this option. So if I click on something, what is happening is we are kind of selecting something. But to have a value of this or a predefined value to this or a default value to this, you cannot just go ahead and say कि user name का कोई default value हो सकता है या email का default value हो सकता है, right? Does it make sense? Can you define a default value for username? कैन यू डिफाइन इट फॉर पासवर्ड? अगर आप फॉर्म क्रिएट कर रहे हो तो उन सब चीज़ों का आप डिफॉल्ट वैल्यू नहीं कर सकते हो, बट इसमें आपको पता है यूजर कोई एक ही चूज करेगा. सो दिस सेलेक्ट टैग व्हाट इट डज इज it gives me an option to select a single option from here. If I'm going to select only one option, we are going to select this single option. ठीक है? तो इसमें एक value attribute कर सकते हैं हम. We can add a value attribute, which means whenever someone clicks on this option, the value is going to be coding. And this will come handy when we are trying to capture, let's say someone clicks HTML. ठीक है? Someone clicks coding. So I know user has chosen an option whose value is coding. ठीक है? Similarly, value is going to be game or gaming. ठीक है? और इसमें value is going to be music. तो मैंने एक predefined value set कर लिया यहाँ पे. When I specify anything with value, that is the predefined value. That is something that is always going to be there for this one. ठीक है? Does it make sense? Now, when I select, it is not going to have a major difference in terms of view of it. But if you see, if I select this in my form, where did it go? This is the select option. So in my form, whatever I select, based on that selection, जब हम capture करेंगे ये data, तब हमें पता चल जाएगा कि चलो ठीक है, coding value आई है या gaming value आई है, और उस हिसाब से हम इसका एक profile create कर सकते हैं. Correct? Does it make sense how to assign values? uh Not like classes, Kirti. Classes is more like a logical positioning, formatting, like in a way of distributing our page so that I can target it later to do something with it. These values are more of a core values, like what the user has entered, what is going to come from the user, right? Yeah, checkbox. Play around with the checkbox. There are multiple types that are there. There are checkbox, there are radio buttons. ठीक है, radio button में आपको grouping करनी पड़ती है. But play with that. I will talk about that as well tomorrow. But आज के लिए हम लोग ये फॉर्म को पहले अच्छे से समझ लेते हैं. तो अगर हम लोग वापस अपने कोड पे जाएं, तो अब कोई भी कोडिंग क्लिक करेगा या गेमिंग क्लिक करेगा तो ये वैल्यू सेट है. अब अगर मैं ये सेम वैल्यू यहाँ पे लिख दूं, लेट्स से आई एम गोइंग टू डिफाइन अ वैल्यू ओवर हियर एंड आई से साइफर, तो अब होगा क्या, इसमें एक प्री डिफाइंड वैल्यू आ जाएगी. देख रहे हो? कैन यू सी इट? देयर इज अ प्री डिफाइंड वैल्यू. नाउ इवन इफ आई चेंज दिस and write something else, let's write my name, and if I submit it, this name will not go. Whatever value I have specified, this value will go. Okay, I hope you understand what value means, what value does on a particular tag. Right? Clear? So where and when we are using values is something very important. ठीक है? ठीक है, तो हम यूजर नेम का वैल्यू कैसे डाल सकते हैं, बिकॉज सबका नाम अलग होता है, या यूजर नेम का ईमेल या पासवर्ड तो उसको चूज करने का ऑप्शन होता है, राइट? बट हियर इज समथिंग दैट आई कैन यूज वैल्यू फॉर. इफ समवन इज ट्राइंग टू सेलेक्ट कोडिंग, I know, okay, if someone uses this, the value is going to be coding. If someone uses this, the value is going to be gaming, right? ठीक है, तो समझ में आया, आ रहा है as we move ahead in our course. In select option, it is not necessary to add values, it won't do anything. So जैसे मैंने आपको दिखाया, ये वैल्यू एट्रीब्यूट ऑब्वियसली विल कम इन हैंडी व्हेन यू आर ट्राइंग टू कैप्चर स्टफ. अभी आप सीखोगे आगे चल के कि क्या क्या जरूरत होती है जब मैं इसको क्लिक कर रहा हूँ एंड व्हेन आई एम सबमिटिंग दिस डिटेल्स, आई नीड टू कैप्चर द वैल्यू ऑफ दिस. सो उस वैल्यू को कैप्चर करने के लिए वो वैल्यू एट्रीब्यूट मस्ट बी देयर. यू विल गेट अ क्लियर पिक्चर जब हम लोग इसको और ज्यादा अच्छे से यूज करेंगे. ठीक है, समझ में आया? ऑलराइट, आई थिंक इट्स टाइम फॉर doubts. Multiple option we use using checkbox, Sridhar. So try using checkbox. Try using checkbox. So there, I showed you, right? There were multiple options inside my select tag में नहीं. There is not a use case. It is not a proper use case. Like multiple आप option कैसे use करोगे? आप ऐसा कर सकते हो कि बहुत सारे अलग अलग elements को add कर सकते हो. But drop down में usually when we are talking about a simple form like this, we cannot use multiple option using the select tag. How to create a captcha, Shashank? You know what captcha is? How it is created? No. So this requires a bit of JavaScript to understand. Okay. So if you are trying to create a captcha, you need to have a kind of a working script in the background. You cannot just go ahead and start writing captchas at the moment. But it's a good thing. I will add. I did not think about this, so I will add it in the content and maybe talk about captchas as well. ठीक है, captchas add कैसे करते हैं? All right. Any more doubts? Raise of hands. Anything? Rohit, yeah, go ahead. Any doubt that you guys are having? I think 1.5 hours is good enough for enough information, because when we are trying to learn something, enough information going together in one go is not a good thing to do. So you get some time, play around with this. You're getting the videos early, and it will help you to practice as well. So anyone having any kind of doubts ki khatam kar de aaj 9:30 pe. How to put the drop down box as a required field? How would you do this? Batao. Can someone answers Bhargavaditya's answer question? Required field on select कौन से? तो अगर ऑप्शन तो हमारा ऑलवेज आ ही रहा है, और ऑब्वियसली हमारा ऑप्शन तो आ ही रहा है. सो लेट्स गो बैक टू द कोड. यहाँ पे मैं रिफ्रेश करता हूँ ताकि इट लोड्स द पेज कंप्लीटली. गो बैक एंड कम बैक टू दिस. So when I do not select anything, you see that there is a tick mark to coding, right? That means it is already selected, right? It is already selected. ठीक है? But think of it. Gurpreet का कुछ है. Gurpreet is putting in some input. Options tag. Options tags में क्या करना है? What are you trying to say, Gurpreet? कोई input? Okay, cool. Play around with this. देखो कि कैसे कर सकते हैं, कैसे default values लगा सकते हैं. No, Anurag, that is a very advanced concept that you are asking. Yeah. So everyone who are done with this and do not have a doubt can leave. Have a nice day. Have a great night. Have a safe, stay safe. And I will see you tomorrow again at the same time. Okay. Good night, everyone who is leaving. Bye bye. Answering to Rohit's question, Rohit, this is a tag in input. Input is a tag, and everything inside it is an attribute. It is an attribute of input tag. This is an attribute of input tag. This is an attribute, value is an attribute of the options tag. Right? Make sense? Tag or attribute में difference? ठीक है. Any more doubts? Yeah, okay. I will try to pass this message along. Okay, I've taken this advice. I think that is a good advice. I should have done it when I was making the thing live. At that point of time, it would have been easier. Anyway, all right. I think there is not much doubt coming in today. So we will see you guys tomorrow at the same time. If you guys don't have a doubt, is anyone having any kind of doubt? Vandit has a doubt. Okay, go ahead, Vandit.
Sir, actually, it's not on topic, sir. I mean, I don't
Attendance.
know. I mean, on based on attendance, I don't know why they gave only one attendance.
अटेंडेंस कौन हैंडल कर रहा है आपके ग्रुप में? आपने कहाँ चेक किया अटेंडेंस?
No, actually, one ma'am sent us. Her name is. Sorry, 1 minute. I'll check it.
Yeah.
Bani,
Okay.
Bani, ma'am. Yeah,
All right. Cool.
ma'am. So again, I think the problem with the email ID. I guess so.
Have you joined the classrooms?
Yeah, yeah. I joined with classrooms. I think in Zoom, I think I'm using with another email ID because due to before classes, there's something problem with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. With that, there's no
Please
even let me know.
clarify with that. Please put in that thing and discuss with Vani as well. Vani will be able to help you out on
Okay.
this. Okay.
Yes.
And
And another
yeah,
and
go.
another one. So if for an input file, if I mean for input we are taking as a file, right? Suppose if we want to take as a file, I want only image one or JPG file. So
Mhm.
how to do that one?
So that is the validation check that you will have to put when JavaScript comes into picture. कि होगा क्या कि you are going to take it out, use the file aspect. You are uploading a file, and when you are sending that file,
String
then
using string. I mean
you
taking
are,
dot के
yeah,
बाद JPG वाला ऐसे देखना है.
exactly. Kind of that validation will come into picture
Okay, okay.
because this is on a very high level. It tries to solve a lot of problem which we used to write it in JavaScript. But अभी आप देख रहे हो ये जो different type of tags हैं. This is all HTML5 का introduction. These
ठीक
are
है.
all new introductions. Okay.
Okay, okay.
We are learning HTML5 parallelly. Like HTML5 is the new version.
Yeah, yeah. Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir. So another one, sir, I mean, if we come to CSS, like the most problem with us will be animations part, like making very good
Animation.
animations.
Animation is a very advanced concept, Vandit. First of all, you need to be very clear with the basics. Are you clear with the basics of CSS? Like, can you replicate a page if I ask you to?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I know how to create everything stuff HTML, I mean, front end part, but the problem like doing very creatively, like suppose what I am thinking, like for my core, I mean, actually I have a core project, I'm working on that one also.
Okay.
So what I'm thinking is like actually my project is on a blood donor. I mean plasma donation.
Okay.
So I'm trying. So if he's trying to, I mean, there will be a something like a 5 or 6. I mean inputs.
Mm-hmm.
So for every input, like in background something the blood donate like we know the blood symbol, right? It will be something like drop wala.
ठीक है. Yeah, I
So
got
for
it.
every input, if we enter every input,
Uh-huh.
so the drop 20%, it will become red.
I got it. So it's like a beaker you have, and every time there
Exactly.
is a particular person that is working or creating that, you
Huh,
put
huh.
in a drop, and the thing gets increased in the beaker. Kind of
Yes,
that,
yes,
right?
yes. Exactly. Yes.
Right. So for that, you need to understand the SAS aspect. There is thing called SAS. Uh,
SAS.
yeah,
SA. Oh, I don't know exactly.
SASS,
Okay.
SCSS, SASS. So these are advanced processors of CSS. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just
So
telling you
where?
for the sake of it, but
Okay.
we are not going to cover this in this particular course.
So, so where can I get this? I mean,
Just
advanced CSS topics to start do it.
just Google it.
Okay.
Just Google it. See what works best for you. I think Free Code Camp will have a good amount of resources for this.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
All right. All right. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah, Rohit. No, it's Vamshi. Yeah, go
Yes,
ahead,
sir.
Vamshi.
Sir, in the options in the select value,
Uh-huh.
we are giving coding as a default value, no, sir. If the user not changing that, not using that default, not using that select value and submitting now, we will get only coding input
Yes.
only, no, sir.
Correct, correct, correct.
The though,
Yeah.
what we should do, sir? Then?
So what do
Uh,
you want? What is the question? Like, what is your doubt?
Like I want to add a default value like a select option like that in before coding
You are saying that you want to
another option.
like I'm not able to understand your
Yes,
uh,
sir. There are four options, no, sir. At present,
yeah,
the first option we can add like a select. Select. The first option is a select thing.
yeah, correct.
That will be a good
So
thing,
you
no?
want a default option, right? You want to set a default option for that.
The here the default will be like select, sir, not coding.
No, default will be your coding only. Default will
Okay.
be your coding option only. Why? Because uh, if I show you the screen,
Hmm.
if I show you the screen, here you see three options. And when I do this, it is already ticked over here. When I select this, it gets
Yes,
ticked.
sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so initially the coding is going to be your option. Now, let's say I am working on I'm working on something which starts mostly involves coding as a part of it, right?
Okay, sir.
Okay, so
Yes.
that can be there. Now, if you want कि default option मेरा जो selected हो value initially वो sports हो, okay?
Yes,
So
yes.
what you can do is you can use the selected option over here. Okay, what this will do is this will make this as the selected option. So when you load, when I refresh, you see
Mm.
sports has come here,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
So this is how you can select a default value.
Okay, starting only we will be setting one default value anyway.
Yeah, so if you put selected on something, that will tell my drop down option that whenever you are loading the select on the browser,
Yes, sir.
make this as selected initially.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. What is the use of value? It is also selecting without that attribute. Value is for some internal aspect. ये वाला जो option, what you see over here, Apurva, is basically a whatever user is seeing. But when user clicks on it, we are capturing this value. Okay. All right. Does it make sense, Apurva? Correct, Venkatesh. For backend, it is mostly useful when we are trying to handle backends. And also, what Ravinder said for Vamshis, we can add a blank option to and say that is selected. We can do that as well, but that is not a good way of doing it. So, all right. Okay. Any more question, guys? If not, then shall we call it a day today? Meet tomorrow? Okay, Venkatesh, got a question. As of now, we can use to store the entire details, right? We can use store using JSON. वो आप वेंकटेश यू आर टॉकिंग इन टर्म्स ऑफ हाउ टू कैप्चर द कंप्लीट डेटा वो तो हम करेंगे ही करेंगे एनीवे व्हेन वी आर ट्राइंग टू कैप्चर this thing is going to get converted into a thing called object and object is something that will become a JSON file. ठीक है तो that we will do बट अभी के लिए हम लोग HTML में एज सच कुछ कैप्चर नहीं कर रहे हैं HTML से हम कुछ कैप्चर नहीं कर रहे हैं ये हम कैप्चर करेंगे जावास्क्रिप्ट के बाद से इस हफ्ते के एंड में हम ये सारी चीजें कैप्चर करना शुरू कर देंगे ओके ऑलराइट पीयूष प्रैक्टिस इज व्हाट आई कुड से जो भी दिख रहा है कुछ भी उठा के HTML W3 schools के जितने भी एट्रीब्यूट्स हैं लिख जाओ, देखो क्या काम कर रहा है, एंड W3 स्कूल की वेबसाइट को ही रेप्लिकेट कर दो. ओके, यस वी विल, रोहित. All right, guys. So I will see you tomorrow then at the same time. Stopping the share, stopping the lives